Hello, argumentation students. Welcome to the Unit 1 overview. You might have already watched the Toulmin video, which explains the Stephen Toulmin reading, but I thought I'd make a video that kind of talks about the entire scope of the unit and kind of what you're supposed to do with the assignment. And maybe that'll clear things up or clarify things. So each unit's designed to deal with a part of a larger question, which is what is argumentation and what does it mean to argue? I'm sure all of you have had arguments, and you might be even in one now, or maybe you're arguing with a friend or loved one, and there are a bunch of scholars who think about argumentation and think about argumentation in many different ways. Political argument, social and cultural argument. I take an agnostic position on what argument is. I think argument can be defined in a number of different ways or its location, but I don't take a very agnostic position on the value of argument and the value of studying it in a kind of a meta way, which is what this class is. We're going to study it by looking at the way people have talked about argument and different ways to conceptualize it and even do a little bit of arguing in the Argument of the Week assignment. So, Unit 1. What's Unit 1 about? Unit 1 is to orient you with a variety of different ways that people have talked about argument, and I'm going to do a couple of specific videos about this unit. One you've seen already. In Unit 1, I'm going to do a couple of specific videos for that. Toulmin you've seen already. I might do one on pragma dialectics just because it's so complicated. But this unit is meant to give you an orientation to how people have thought about argument in a broad and representative way. Wayne Brady and Joseph Wenzel are both American rhetoricians who have written about argument and are known for writing about argument. And in those two pieces, Where is Argument? And in Joseph Wenzel's three-way division of argumentation in terms of product, process, and procedure, those two work pretty well together. In the Wayne Brady piece, what you're looking for is the 6 different things that argument needs to have to meet his definition of argument. One of the most important things that Brady contributes to argumentation studies is he makes it not a material thing, but a human concept, a human activity. And maybe it might be valuable to think of argument as a human activity. Although we do talk about animals arguing and maybe even other creatures argue, I wonder if that's just us engaging the pathetic fallacy, giving human emotion and feelings to things that maybe don't have them, instead of attributing it some other way. It's more for us than it is for them. They might not be arguing, but it's important for us to think of them as arguing for some reason. It helps us understand their behavior when they don't need any kind of, animals don't really need any kind of explanation and justification for what they're doing because they're behaving like animals. The Joseph Wenzel piece talks about how American argumentation scholars have looked at argument's 3 functions: as a product, something we make; as a procedure, a method we go through for solving different social and political conflicts; or a process, something that we go through in order to determine whether we're right, what do we believe, what do we think, should we change our mind, this kind of thing. These 3 are not exclusive. Don't think that it has to be one and not the other ones. It can be combinations of them. It's like a spectrum. Thinking about it like a spectrum, I think, is quite good. But please keep in mind what the characteristics would be and the relationship in classical thinking between rhetoric, dialectic, and logic that Wenzel makes. So those 2 essays I think you won't have any trouble with. But if you do, post your questions in the Discord. Post your questions on Blackboard. Let me know what you're thinking if you're having trouble understanding these pieces, but they should be pretty straightforward. The value for you of these 2 pieces is orient your own thought of argument around these pieces. Do you think argument can be divided into 3 different traditional approaches? Do you think argument is a human-oriented activity or is it something else? Think about how you would respond or how you would include Wayne Brady and Joseph Wenzel in your own discussion about what argument is for the final paper, the final exam. I already talked about the Toulmin video, or I already talked about the Toulmin piece in another video. So go watch that. That's very comprehensive. It's like almost 30 minutes long. And the other piece to talk about in Unit 1 would be the pragma dialectics piece by Franz von Emer and Bob Grutendorst. What pragma dialectics is a theory of argument that takes the pragmatic nature of argument, that it's situational, that it's of the moment, that it involves sort of material and cultural and social restrictions, and combines it with dialectics, which is the very high-level philosophy of engagement and exchanging ideas to get to a truth or a realization that no one could get to on their own. Without the exchange, no one could accomplish that higher level realization without the exchange. So pragmatic dialectics seems like a contradiction at first, but the marriage of the two allows them to come up with an argument theory to say, now we can measure the quality of arguments regardless of the situation. That's what pragmatic dialectics tries to do, is to say, if there are situational constraints on argument, and situational constraints on what argument can be, how do we know we're ever in a good one? One of the ways of doing that is to follow the critical discussion procedure. And that's what this essay is about that I assigned to you. A critical discussion has 10 steps, and it has to follow those 10 steps in order to resolve a difference of opinion. So argumentation for von Emeren and Grutendorst is the resolution of a difference of opinion. And that's what argument is meant to do. It's a very interesting way to look at it. It might not be your way, but again, you need to think about how to engage this conversation with your own ideas about argumentation. Is argumentation a practical, everyday, common sense kind of thing, or is it much more of a philosophical purity? These thinkers in this piece say it's both married together in order to create an actual usable ideal for argumentation. And that usable ideal is a 10-step method that, if we don't follow it explicitly, at least we can go back and look at the argument and say, did we follow it in the spirit of the law? Did we follow it in name? Did we try our best to accomplishment? And if so, then we have a very fair argument, and one that is a good one, hopefully, and it should resolve our difference of opinion. So that's the overview of Unit 1 and the readings in there. I'll do a couple more in-depth videos on that. What to do for the assignment. So let's talk about the assignment I want you to do for each unit. At the end of each unit, you should pick a controversy going in the world and take insights you've read from the readings and apply it to that controversy. It doesn't really matter which one it is. You can pick anything that is a public controversy where people are arguing about either what to do, what to think, what to believe. Any public controversy is good, where people are arguing, saying what to think, what to do, what to believe. That'll work fine. Now, you can then choose whether or not you want to get involved in that and say, let me write an argument using these principles from the theory that I've read in class, and try to write an argument for that based on these readings and based on what I know about the controversy, whether it's sports or music or politics or international relations, whatever you want to do, the choice is yours. But you got to do a little research and find some things people are saying, and then comment on them, say, these aren't very good in terms of the theory, or you can rewrite an argument someone's done, or engage in the argument yourself, and then explain how you used the theories that you read in order to improve the quality of the discourse. Yeah, the last thing, you can write a traditional paper and turn it on a blackboard, or you can film yourself like I'm doing now here with this camera and talk to us and give a video explaining what it is you thought about Unit 1's readings or any unit's readings and how it applies to a controversy that you're interested in. Or you can redo a speech or redo an argument from that controversy yourself. And you can either audio record it, video record it, or write a more traditional paper like you would for another class. The choice is yours. Obviously, it's much more fun to do it orally like this. I mean, I didn't type this out for you to read. I made a video, so that tells you kind of how I feel about it and what I would prefer. But maybe you don't like doing this. Maybe you don't like being on camera. Maybe you would want to do it some other way. So I hope that explains Unit 1 pretty well. There's a couple other videos in this unit. Check them out. And as always, if you have questions, I'm always available on Discord, or you can Skype me, Steve Yano. Please send me a Skype or call the student hotline number on the syllabus, and I'm happy to answer your questions about anything that goes on in this class. That's Unit 1. Unit 1 is how have others defined argument? And the goal of this unit is, well, what do you take from this for your own understanding of what argument ought to be and should be and is? How are you going to incorporate this into your conversation?